How are you doing? I'm Kai, this is Stop the Lights, and that's a creepy doll that scares the underpants off me. They won't come off! That didn't go to plan, did it? Shite! I've never even seen The X-Files until recently. I was always just an ignorant little who shrugged it off as that show that had the Illuminati music. But I'm so glad I started watching it because it's actually really good. The episode I'm talking about today, Chinga, is considered to be one of the scariest episodes in the entire show, as it's full-on horror driven, as opposed to some of the other episodes that have more of a sci-fi feel to them. It's completely standalone and was actually written by the king of horror himself, Stephen King, so you already know it's gonna be good. And just like it scared the underpants off me, you already know it's gonna scare the underpants off you too. It's about a series of strange events in a small town, and the best but most unsettling part is the fact that they're linked to a doll. If you're ignorant like I once was and you don't know what the X-Files is about, then listen up. I may have once been ignorant, but I've since changed my ways and done my research. The X-Files follows FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully, who were assigned to investigate the X-Files, or unexplained events. They're given a basement as their office because apparently the Bureau is just embarrassed by the idea of extra-terrestrials. They want to believe that they don't exist. Now Mulder is like a pig in shit when the topic of paranormal phenomena comes up because he's a complete believer in it. And because of this, everyone on ground level takes the piss out of him and calls him Spooky Mulder. On the other hand, Scully is a major skeptic and refuses to believe in the paranormal, even after it has knocked on her front door a million times during the runtime of the show. I mean, she even sees a disgusting sewer monster in one episode, for fuck's sake. And she's like, this can't be. That must be Tommy from across the road. She's got to be the most stubborn character on TV. The X-Files aired from 1993 to 2002 with 9 seasons, and it even had 2 movie spin-offs. One simply called The X-Files and the other called The X-Files I Want to Believe. It came back with a 2-season revival that spanned from 2016 to 2018, and that was seemingly the end of the show. But just when everyone thought that there would never be any more X-Files, Ryan Coogler came along and started developing an upcoming reboot series. It's still in early development though, so I can't really comment much on it. In general, The X-Files was influenced by lots of media, but most notably Tales from the Dark Side, Twin Peaks and The Twilight Zone. They all start with T, I just realised. I think Tales from the Dark Side makes the most sense, to be honest, because I've seen that show, and it features monsters, aliens, cryptids, cursed objects and other general paranormal shit like that, just like the X-Files. But all in all, aliens are the main ingredient of the X-Files. Today's episode, Chinga, falls into the cursed objects category of creatures, and it's guaranteed to creep you out. Especially if you're a squeamish pussy like me and you don't like dolls. Let's say dolls like Chucky. That bitch looks nothing like me.
Don't fuck with the Chuck.
Anyways, I'm pretty sure you've had enough backstory, and it's time for me to stop talking rubbish and boring you to death by doing so, and let's get into the episode. The episode opens up with a little girl and her extremely creepy looking doll sat in the car. I don't like the fact that its eyes are closed, it's only exaggerating the creepiness by doing that. Also, what's this little girl even doing playing with an old doll like that? It's 1998, not in 1938. Give this girl a Furby or something. The girl and her mother go into the shop to get some groceries, and everyone else just stares at them. If it's the doll that's piquing their interest, well there you go. I'm not the only one who doesn't like the look of that bloody thing.
I want to go home.
The doll's like, home? I just sounded like Marge from The Simpsons there. But anyways, the bloody doll is alive and it wants to have some fun apparently. Okay, now I think the Chucky comparison was fair.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
This doll basically says the same line but paraphrased. The mother spots what appears to be a hologram of a man with a knife in his eye. Imagine just walking down this aisle like, oh, I wonder what we'll get for dinner. Maybe some honey and hickory chicken. What the f is that? I certainly don't want that for dinner. But mainly because I'm not gay. In all seriousness though, everything strange that's happening in the store is clearly linked to the doll. The mother says,
"Don't do this to mommy,"
to the girl, as if she's the one making everyone shove their fingers in their eyes. What kind of a sick child would do that? It's pretty obvious that it's the doll. I never did trust those freaky looking porcelain dolls. I remember there was one of those dolls just across from me in the guest bedroom in my granny's house when I was a kid. I'd be in the bed, it was across from me on the dresser. I used to feel the doll staring into my soul. Anyways, the butcher here calls security to fix what's going on, but the doll shows up and forces him to shove a knife into his eye like his fingers weren't enough. And that's the end of that explosive introduction. Now we cut over to Scully, who's apparently on vacation. As she's driving, the mother and the little girl vigorously pull out in front of her, and then Scully looks over to the grocery store and sees a man with blood all over his face. Then she goes inside and finds out that all of the other customers and staff have also almost gouged their eyes out. Scully gives Mulder a call, who's watching the XXX files he has stored on his computer, it seems. He switches it off and Scully tells him the news about what happened in the store. Scully then checks the security footage and spots Melissa, who's the mother of the little girl. She realises that she's completely unaffected. She hasn't gouged her eyes out. And speaking of Melissa,
people here say she's a witch.
buddy, it's not her that's the witch. 'Tis the f***ing doll. Get that into your head.
I'm not much of a believer in witchcraft.
And here we go again with the stubbornness. I'd like to once again point out that up until this point, Scully has witnessed ghosts, monsters, zombies, mutants, aliens, gargoyles, and the list goes on, with her own eyes. She might as well have just gouged them out like everyone else in the grocery store because she doesn't bother to use them. We then find out that Melissa has been having sex
With Dave, the butcher.
Well, there won't be any more of that unless she's into necrophilia, cause he's dead. A cop by the name of Buddy calls Melissa to tell her that there's suspicion of her being involved in what has happened. The girl says,
Hang up, Mommy.
I'll tell you what, the look on her face says it all, she's been warned. But she doesn't give a shit because she completely ignores her daughter and walks outside continuing the phone call. She's gonna regret that. Because the doll is here to punish her. Then we cut over to Scully and the chief of police, who are visiting Melissa's house, but she and her daughter aren't there. They're eating ice cream with Buddy the cop, and Polly wants cherries on top.
I want more cherries.
I'm like f***ing Dr. Seuss with these rhymes. Then Melissa tells Buddy that she had a premonition of Dave the Butcher dying, and it turned out to be true. And the same thing happened when her husband dies, so either she is actually a witch or the doll has cursed her. Buddy gives Melissa the keys to a remote cabin near a lake in an attempt to get them as far as possible away from the townspeople who think that she's a murderous witch. Back to Polly wanting cherries.
You're gonna have to go ask your mommy for some more money, hun.
She doesn't get her own way, so the doll decides to discipline the worker. Now back to Scully and the chief of police as they visit Jane, who used to teach Polly in daycare. What she has to say doesn't really appeal to Scully because, as we know, Scully doesn't believe. She says this about Melissa.
Our great-great-grandfathers knew how to treat witches. They would have driven the demon out of that little girl.
So off they go to find some leads that they may actually have a chance of believing. And now we're back over to Melissa, Polly, and this evil little shit of a doll.
Let's have fun.
They're on their way to that cabin, but first they get stopped by a ranger who takes her license number. Every time that something bad is about to happen, that doll seems to open its bloody eyes. And then we see a very fucked up looking man with his mouth open wide behind the car. The reason his mouth is open so wide is because he's in complete shock that you're not subscribed to the channel. He definitely doesn't say help me, help me. So Melissa speeds off in a fright, meaning that the ranger couldn't finish taking down her license number. Then she just turns around and goes back home. Obviously the doll activates and makes something bad happen when Polly doesn't get what she wants.
I want my bed. I want my records. Let's have fun.
And subsequently, Melissa is forced to spoil the brat. Over to Jane, the daycare teacher. Her record player starts playing automatically, and upon switching it off,
I want to play.
Well, it appears that the evil doll has found out that Jane doesn't approve of its actions. But when Jane tries to protect herself, instead she's forced to kill herself by the doll with her own broken record. Actually, that's not the only broken record in this room. The doll is another one. It just keeps making people turn sharp objects on themselves. First the butcher, and now Jane. Scully becomes interested in how Melissa's husband died. He actually died on this boat to a grappling hook, and that fisherman we see on it right now was on it the night her husband died. Scully is going to question him about it, but first...
Let's have fun!
Let me guess, Melissa is going to have another premonition. Yeah, of course. So Buddy the cop is gonna die. Now Buddy shows up to the house. He thinks Melissa killed Jane, and then he insults Polly.
You little brat.
But to be honest, he is right. She is a little brat.
I want to play.
And here we go, it's time for Melissa's premonition to come true, unfortunately. You know, all it takes is for Melissa to just burn that bloody doll. But she won't. She's as dumb as it gets. Scully and the chief question the fisherman, and he gives them the whole story of what happened that night.
Catch of the day.
Yeah, catch of the day if dying is on your schedule for the day. The fisherman explains that sometimes they just hear random noises while on the boat. And this one time, Melissa's husband heard one of those noises.
What the hell was that?
He goes to investigate with a hook in his hand. Let me guess, that's the same hook that the doll made him use on himself against his will. Well shit, that is the same one. And that's f***ing brutal. Finally, Scully starts using her brain. Mulder calls her and she hypothetically asks him if he has ever come across cursed objects, maybe dolls, being able to direct human behaviour. This case has been dragging along arseways without Mulder's supernatural expertise involved. But this one question might change the whole thing.
You mean like Chucky?
Mulder! That is exactly what I was thinking. Remember I mentioned Chucky at the start? Anyways, it turns out that Mulder has actually heard about this kind of thing happening. And now Scully and the chief of police finally decide to go talk to Melissa, who at this current moment is being forced to make popcorn.
Where's my popcorn?
For her spoiled little brat of a daughter Polly in the presence of Buddy the cop's corpse. And when the popcorn is done and the doll isn't looking, Melissa nails all windows and doors shut in the house to stop the doll from being able to escape, and ultimately protect the people on the outside. Polly comes downstairs and the doll gives Melissa a premonition of her own death. I reckon she'll be fine though, considering the fact that Scully and the chief of police are on the way. Surely they'll intervene and protect her or something. That's pretty easy to predict. But just as Melissa is getting ready to seemingly burn down the house to put an end to the doll opens its eyes and then puts out the match that was going to be used to burn down the house. Meanwhile, Scully and the chief of police are outside trying to force their way inside. It's a bit hard though, considering that all the doors are nailed shut. As soon as they get inside, the doll forces Melissa to whack herself in the face with the hammer. Scully makes an attempt to stop this, so she takes the doll off Polly and sticks it in the microwave. It's crazy that Scully is actually aware that the doll is causing all of these bad things to happen. Fair play to her. She's not afraid to let her ignorance take over. The doll catches on fire, which I'm actually surprised by, because it has telekinetic powers. Couldn't it have just pulled the plug to the microwave out of the socket or something? With its mind. Anyways, Melissa has stopped whacking herself in the face, so she's safe now. And everyone else is safe too, because that's the end of the murderous doll's rampage, or at least we think it is. Scully finishes her so-called vacation and goes back to Mulder at the basement office. She takes an interest in his poster that says, "I want to believe," and then lies to him about the case, telling him that she didn't solve it and instead enjoyed herself on her vacation doing vacation things. Clearly Mulder isn't worth a fuck without Scully. And we can see this by the fact that he has built whatever the hell that is. And just before the episode ends, a random fisherman catches the doll, and it's burned to shit.
I want to play.
But that doesn't mean that it's lost its function. It hasn't. And that's where the episode ends. Much like many other X-Files episodes, we're left on a cliffhanger that's never going to be resolved. Obviously this is a standalone Monster of the Week episode, so there's no sequel. I suppose we're just gonna have to imagine what happens next, but I can tell you one thing for a fact: that fisherman isn't getting out of there alive. Now that wasn't in any means the best X-Files episode I've seen, and actually going into it and knowing the fact that Stephen King wrote it, I was expecting something mind-blowing. What I got was something entertaining and enjoyable, but not enough for it to be one of those episodes that jams in my head. I was talking to a friend recently who's seen the X-Files years ago, and I asked him if he remembers this episode Chinga, and he said not really. Now if that's not a sign that this episode isn't the holy grail of the X-Files, I don't know what is. But still, fair play to Stephen King for writing something decent and unique, specifically for the X-Files. I genuinely enjoyed the episode, and right from the beginning it established that it was going to go into horror territories, and that the rest of the episode would be full on horror. Literally in the first 2 minutes we see a man with a knife in his eye, and not long after that we see an entire grocery store full of people trying to remove their bloody eyeballs. It's not something you see on a regular basis when you're going down to the store to get a bag of crisps, or as you Americans like to call them, chips, that you see something like this happening. Anyways, that's something that I liked about it. It was nice to get a feel for the tone instantly, rather than having to wait ages for something to happen that, you know. The scariest moments for me would have to be the part at the start where the butcher is forced to turn the knife on himself, when Jane is forced to turn the broken record on herself, when Melissa's husband turned the hook on himself, and when Melissa is forced to turn a hammer on herself. Coincidentally, they all involved the doll using its telekinetic powers to turn objects on themselves, turn weapons on themselves. Which is odd, because if the doll can move things with its mind, why didn't it just open up a cupboard or something, pull a knife out with its mind and stab them? Actually, that question is probably already answered. It's just a sadistic, creepy doll. Not everything is horror though, there is a tiny bit of comedic relief sprinkled in there too. But mostly those 2 phone calls from Mulder, who's clearly dying of boredom. Like when he was watching porn that one time, and when he stuck 1,000,000 pencils into the roof in the end. Part of the ending was sort of predictable, considering the fact that I knew Scully and the Chief of Police would intervene and prevent the death of Melissa. But what I wasn't expecting was for the doll to be shoved in the microwave of all things. The fact that Scully picked up the doll and her first instinct was to run over to the microwave is quite funny. I would have expected her to try lighting the matches, but you never know. Maybe she saw Melissa trying to do that through the window and realised that it didn't work for her, so there was no point trying it herself. Overall, I think the episode was really well done and managed to merge a detective story with a haunted doll story and executed it pretty well. Speaking of the doll story, something that was left quite ambiguous was whether Polly herself was evil, or if she was just a spoiled little brat who used the doll's abilities to her advantage so she could get whatever she wanted.
I want more cherries.
Or maybe she was possessed by the doll. Endless possibilities. By the end of the episode though, when the doll is burned, we see something in Polly's face that we hadn't seen at all previously. Concern and adoration for her mother. So it's clear that she may have finally recognised a fault in the doll and her attachment to it. To be honest, when I first saw her look at her mother like that, I expected her to run up to her and give her a big fat hug, but she didn't. So we're left to wonder whether she owned up to her mistakes or not. It's hard to find too many faults in this episode, but something that kinda confused me was how the doll just left Polly to go and find Jane's house. I don't even know how it found Jane's house, but it did, to go and kill Jane. And Polly didn't even wonder, where the hell is my doll? Sure, maybe she was fast asleep, and that would make sense considering it was night time, but still, it's a bit of an unexplained plot hole. And if I was to criticise Scully's investigation, I would probably note how, in contrast to many other X-Files episodes, Scully doesn't gather much scientific or forensic evidence to piece together the murders in a logical way. Most of the time, she just wanders around town and talks to people to gather her information. I'm confused as to why Mulder is barely involved. I think the roles should have been reversed and Mulder should have been in Scully's place, investigating the murders. Because he's the one who genuinely delves deep into paranormal phenomena, and isn't afraid to immediately resort to the idea that maybe the paranormal is involved in whatever he's investigating. The episode would have been half the length it is if Mulder was involved. You might be wondering why I even bothered bothered to point out those flaws without offering pointers as to what should have happened instead. Well, I'm only qualified to identify shortcomings, not resolve them. That's a different department altogether. So shut your f***ing trap. Just joking. Anyways, that's about all I have to say about this X-Files episode, Chinga. Let me know if there's any other X-Files episodes you'd like to see me talk about on the channel, or if there's any other episodes from other shows you'd like to see me talk about as well. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next one. I'll tell you one thing, I'd better see you in the next one, or that doll will come for you.